I would like to welcome Carolyn and Will, who are also part of the management of Advanced Supply Chain Group. Sometimes you have a name of a company where you think, what on earth are these guys doing? So you make my life a little bit easier. That's at least one question I don't need to ask.
Okay.
So maybe Carolyn, you can introduce yourself and what's your role with the company?
Yeah, I'm Caroline. I'm the commercial director at Advanced Supply Chain Group. Been with the business now for I think a little over 11 years, and we are what we say on the tin. Really, we are a supply chain company. We handle end-to-end logistics and supply chain, and try and solve our customers' problems. That's essentially what we do.
And can you give a little bit of the scope? Is that, you're English, right? So
Yeah.
you know about an island and stuff, or is that going beyond that as well?
Yeah, we're a British company. Very proud to be hailing from Yorkshire. But we're now national. We've got multiple sites within the UK, and we are also global. So the end-to-end piece is origin logistics, freight forwarding. We've also got sites in the Czech Republic and offices in the Middle East as well, and the Far East. So we're global. We're part of a bigger group now. We are part of a larger group called Reconomy, and we our sister companies are here today, Cycling and Rebound, and we offer truly global solutions. We're expanding more within the next year. We're going to be expanding more within Europe and also the USA. So truly global and growing.
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. So, Will, could you introduce yourself and your role in the company in Advanced Supply Chain Group?
Yeah, so I've been with the business similar time to Caroline, just a little bit over 11 years. My background is tech, and I work on a lot of the solutions that we do for our customers. So we're very tech-led in what we do, and obviously data, as everyone here will know, is pretty key for getting the supply chain as efficient as it can be. So we work with our customers on kind of filling those gaps and making sure that all that visibility is there, and particularly exception visibility. It's all well and good having loads and loads of things you can see, but being able to see when something's going wrong and take action and get that's kind of where I come in, and I help build those solutions.
Sounds like, a bit of a problem is not making you nervous there.
Not at all. No. And it's very, very key at what we do. So we have a lot of customers who come to us. Most of their supply chain is okay. Everything's working in the most part, but we help them fix them little problems that sit in the middle. They might have an inbound compliance problem. They might have an issue with their returns, even if that's just the returns in one particular region. And we can help solve those problems in the parts.
Okay, and great. And Caroline, you were talking about, Reconomy, right? But that seems like a big conglomerate of different type of companies. And how do you keep your focus in such a conglomerate and as well with your service offering?
Do you know? We're part of a bigger group, and as a group, there's various different verticals, really surrounding, I suppose, very much to do with circular economy and
They have it.
They don't. Really surrounding we can go without it if you want. We just go without it.
Yeah.
We're part of a bigger group. There's a lot of focus on circular economy and ESG as a whole business, but within the verticals, we sit in one that is very much around the logistics. We, as I mentioned before, our sister companies, Cycling and Rebound, are very much in the technology and the first mile of the returns, and we're very much in that whole logistics piece where we handle products. So although we are part of a bigger group, we've got a common focus moving forward. But we're very much Advanced Supply Chain as a business. We've got our focus as a problem solver across the whole of the logistics sort of area that we work.
Just one sort of housekeeping on that one. We still don't have your presentation. Is that somewhere on the memory stick with one of you?
We could get it, or we can go without. We know the parts that we want to talk about today.
Yeah,
so we can run through that.
We will make it as lively as possible, and we try to recover that from the back. But somewhere it ended up in a little thing called the internet. But we should be good on that one.
Yeah.
So just further alluding on that one, Caroline, your service premise, right, to the clients. it's kind of broad, right? But it's sort of what is a typical client that really fit well with your company?
Do you know, it does vary. The clients can be small, they can be huge, and we understand that as a supply chain provider, we may not provide all services to all our customers. If we have a really, really large customer, it means we will probably be working alongside and in partnership with other third-party logistics providers. We would never assume that we will get that end-to-end for everybody. So for some clients, we might just do returns, or we might do their warehousing and fulfillment, and for others, we will do the full end-to-end. We'll have the whole piece, which includes the freight forwarding, bringing product from origin, warehousing the product, fulfilling, and that might be B2C and B2B, and then handling returns as well. But for others, it could be just one part of that. And as Will said before, technology is really, really key, and being able to provide that visibility to our customers is really important. And the beauty in being able to building our own technology and having a modular solution means that it's really simple for us to provide one service or two or three really, really easily, and still be able to deliver that service promise.
And could you sort of give an example in of a client that you sort of went through that entire journey, right? Sort of we see many clients here in the room that moved from a small to a big, and sort of how would you facilitate that fast growth in e-commerce?
Yeah, I mean we've seen that recently, as everybody will know, and everybody's had the challenges over the last couple of years. I don't really need to sort of spell them all out, but obviously COVID being one, and that's really changed the face of retail. And one particular client, they're a major online retailer, and they went from immediately retail closing down to suddenly needing a solution where they could handle product and get that on sale as quickly as possible. We spun up an operation for those guys in, I think it was a week.
Yep.
In one of our sites in the UK, and what we did was enable them to purchase product, bring it through us. We did processing, pre-retailing, made that product fully compliant, and enabled them to get it straight into their fulfillment centre, straight into the pick phase, and on sale as quickly as possible. And I think this is the whole part around the speed, the need for speed, the speed to market. That was evidence that without us doing that, they would have slowed down. They wouldn't have been able to get the product on sale quickly. They wouldn't have been able to fulfill the orders where everybody was working at home and wanted, casual gym wear. And they had a boom. It was amazing. And we still work with those guys now. We're talking to them about doing more product for them. They've bought more and more brands. We help them with the cutover from brands being bought and then having to be compliant. We're talking to them about returns.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Would you see that as a trend, that very quick turnaround need for these growth companies?
It is. I mean, it's not something that our IT department like very much, because when we turn around and say we want something in a week, we get a bit of pushback. But we want to be able to say yes, we can do that, and we can deliver something really quickly. Doesn't always happen in an agile world. We'd like a little bit longer to go live, but when the needs of a customer comes up like that, we've got to be able to react, and that again is one of the things that we pride ourselves on. It's our agility to be able to react, and when things happen like the pandemic, conflict, or issues with delays when vessels get stuck in the Suez Canal, and then suddenly there's a massive influx of product. You've got to be able to react, and you've got to be able to solve the problems for your customers.
Yeah, and so that lands at your desk then. So Will, and then sort of you raise your eyebrows, and then, hey, Carolyn, here it comes again, type of thing.
Right.
So
right.
How would you pick up on those type of activities?
I mean, it helps to have a pretty good understanding with the customers that we've got relationships already of what they need and what their compliance is. So, like on what Caroline was saying there, around there were a couple of brands who went into administration, and that brand, the new owners wanted to keep that brand moving, so they had product that was in stores, it was in their online fulfillment warehouse, and they just wanted to get that out, get that documented, get that product compliant, and move that and put that back on sale quickly, because they didn't want that brand to disappear or to drop or to go off the radar of consumers. So for us, like we will pick that up. We'll understand kind of what the product data looks like from where they're picking it up, and then we just need to make that compliant, and we'll put that through the standard processes that we do. In terms of the tech and the visibility, you can understand that these things then need to be spun up, and we need to think of pretty quick solutions to take a jumbled pile of stock that can be absolutely anything and get that outsorted and put that into SKU Solid ready for an e-commerce warehouse. So we quickly prototype things. We have a lot of Lego sets around our office that we'll play with, and we'll try and look at how we're going to do the process, and then we'll move quickly from prototype to build and get that through. But again, the time's of the essence, and again, that's kind of what we're talking about today, is that I think the days are gone where you can spend months and plan and project plan and say, okay, we're going to do this. That's gone.
And if you take that on, you see that a little bit as a trend, you need to move quickly type of thing. So, and which of the Lego blocks or the stuff that you're doing, which ones are you using yourself, and which one are you sort of procuring or sort of partner with?
Yeah. So we personally build ourselves purely because of that speed. I think once you start introducing procurement and doing all that sort of stuff, you're going to slow down naturally on the back of going out to market and trying to find something. But like you say, it's here to stay now. This is what supply chains need. They need to be able to adapt. They need to be able to take opportunities when they come, but also they've got to make sure that leverages through all of the great things that they've built. So you've got your automated warehouses, everything's great, that's all working, but you need to be able to react to these little opportunities and still run that into that automation and take advantage of that.
And so if you take that on, and sort of also to you, Carolyn, sort of, are there particular sectors that you're specifically good at? Yeah, that was sort of I spoke to a couple of retailers that also have these niche markets, for instance, medication or nicotine, even I heard, and those type of things. How would you sort of play into that one?
So I mean, our background is in fashion retail. So clothing is where we started. We started as a garment processor probably nearly 30 years ago now, but that's changed. It's evolved. We've still got quite a large percentage of clothing, which is through our customers, but that has evolved, and we've now got many customers in the home, lifestyle, cosmetics, face and body, health supplements, general household goods, and some ambient food. So it does vary. We've changed, we've adapted, and I think as well as many retailers have changed as well, and people moving to more marketplaces and product diversification. We've got to do that as well. We're not so pigeonholed that we're just clothing anymore. We have changed. But we have got specialisms in there, and there are a lot of specialisms required when you're dealing with clothing. So we have got that background.
And so, and the areas there which you would like to grow into, is there any particulars that you say you would like to share this with within this group?
Well, I think the areas that I've just mentioned really are the areas that we're targeting and focusing on. But even whilst we've been here, people have come to us and asked us about other products that we may not touch yet, some electronics and things like that, that we always look at, because we there's not many things we sort of going to look at and go, no. I mean, maybe explosives and stuff like that. We're not really going to go into that area, but we always look at things, because a product is a product, and especially when you're dealing with warehousing and fulfillment or returns, handling a product and returning it back to perfect condition, or exit route management is the same, really, whether you're talking about a garment or a toothbrush or something like that. It's still a product that you've got to handle and you've got to process through. So
I think one of the areas that we're looking at as well is the large and bulky items and the consumer experience that comes along with that. So you see a lot of places that you can buy furniture from, and the delivery is very much handed over to the two-man delivery, and that's kind of picked up from there, which can be a bit of a clunky consumer experience, especially if you've gone on to, you go to Wayfair, you go to Made, you buy, 5 things, and you get 5 different notifications, probably from 3 or 4 different carriers, and you can manage your delivery with each of those individual carriers, but there's no togetherness of it, and you've kind of got to stay home and be in for all those different parts. And we think there's a lot of ability to connect that together and make that experience, including the returns experience if they need to, a lot more seamless and a lot more integrated with that retailer, so it feels a lot more personal when that comes through.
Sure. Hey, and sort of talking about that growth space as well. In a way that sort of what do you see sort of also part in the part of the headline of this presentation was also about key trends.
Yep.
Right. So if you look into the bigger market, you know, you're probably close to the heartbeat of what's happening in the industry because of your versatility in a way to
Yep.
and to accommodate many needs. Where do you see sort of some of these key trends picking up next to the speed thing, but that may be a little bit platitude type of thing? Where is the customer needs moving towards?
What we're seeing a lot of, obviously after the disruption of we won't mention the C word, of all the supply chains are kind of rebalancing themselves, especially with Brexit and things like that, especially with cross-border movements. There's so much out there right now that is moving and it's paying duty where it doesn't need to pay duty. It's crossing borders in places that it really shouldn't be. So we're working with a lot of our clients right now, and a lot of them are having this same conversation about we need to get the products to the right place on the first time so that we're not bringing it, landing it into the UK, let's say, and then repatriating that across to different countries. We're making sure that the consolidation is happening and the product is going directly to where it needs to go, and that we're making smarter decisions on whether we're using sea, road, air, and making sure that we're keeping it as efficient and as low cost as we can.
Of course. You would like to add on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, another key trend that we're seeing as well is growth in sort of marketplace and product expansion. We're seeing that a lot now with customers where they're having to think about the best way to get their own product to market, but also increase their sales potential by taking on other brands. Maybe in direct to consumer work. So, and one other customer we've got in the UK, they are a traditional bricks and mortar retailer. They've grown into e-com. Obviously, when the shops were closed, they've massively expanded their offer online, and they're now looking at other ways to expand further. And they're looking at growth in their homeware product. They were a traditional sort of clothing retailer, but actually expanding in ways that they're dealing with other brands, not stocking them themselves, but online only, direct to consumer. So they are a platform. They're no longer a retailer of their own product. They are a platform where other people are selling on. But then with that comes the challenges of returns. So it's a real challenge, and one of the things we're working with a number of customers on. And how do you handle a return if you are a marketplace and you don't want that product back in your store? You've got to think of it differently. So we're having conversations where we're blue sky or out of the possible conversations with them to try and help them understand what returns could actually look like and what that whole piece could look like if you are expanding into marketplace. And it's more and more happening. And
a return is a customer experience, right? So then, and in many ways, if you just take the logistics part and which box and which drop-off point or a pickup, you sort of you go beyond what is really happening behind the scenes. You want to have a quick refund, you want to have a quick data recovery, and whether the parcel ends up in a warehouse or in the shop, becomes less of an issue nowadays. If you look into what the key needs are, and particularly the speed is probably not the logistics, but it's probably more, to Will's point, is really about the data, right? Yeah.
And the unique proposition I think that some of the bricks and mortars stores still have when they grow out that platform is that there's still a physical presence. So you can walk back into store, which gives the retailer an opportunity to convert that sale again. So if I can get that money back into your account immediately or do that as an exchange, I can still make the sale that go through, and I can sell you something there when you're in store on that day.
Hey, so we are obviously here in the e-commerce and the retail domain. A bit of a cheeky question, and it's just a crystal ball type of thing. So where do you see the winners? And we saw that a few years ago, whether it would be Amazon or Walmart type of thing. And clearly in the US, Amazon has taken over market dominance in certain spaces. Would you see something happening here in Europe, or do you see emerging trends in that space? Because I meet here also, the 24-year-olds. They're probably already driving their Maserati on a simple premise, versus the retailers still struggling in the bricks and mortar type of thing. So
right.
Where would you see that going?
I think there's a definite blurring of the lines between brands, retailers, platforms. I mean, I think that there's a strong argument to say that Amazon are not necessarily a retailer and they're more of a logistics provider. And I think the same's happening with retailers and brands. Brands are now becoming quite adept at marketing directly to consumers, having their own websites, having their own dropship models. So I think there's a bit of a battle going on, and it's interesting to see like whether consumers are still going to want a retailer who is considered unbiased, that they just put the products on the shelf and it's any brand that you want to get, or whether people are going to keep going directly to brands, and what happens when that brand lets them down. So if I always buy Adidas trainers and I'm always going to Adidas for that, after the first or second failure with that, if no retailers are in the marketplace anymore, where do I go next? How do I find another brand to go to? So it's going to be interesting. Everything that we do is in response to consumer behavior, and consumers will lead this. And this is what, it's hard to predict because we don't know what's going to happen. But there's a definite trend right now from brands entering as retailers, going direct.
Yeah, we see that a lot in terms of, that is a sort of single new premise or new value proposition you see quickly moving into the market. The brand building on digital.
Yep.
That is amazing. Maybe we can open the floor as well for some questions from the audience, or maybe Tony, you would like to comment on the American trends in this one. Putting you up to stand here, my buddy. You would like to comment briefly? This is chairman of the Reverse Logistics Association, by the way. Maybe you can say a few things on the trends that we see in the US as well, and then Caroline and Will may be able to comment on those.
Thank you, Ernst. Nothing like being put on the spot. I will say a lot of this in an hour or so at the keynote plenary and talk about the customer experience is the driver, but almost every company here is focused on the solution to returns. Very few are focused on how to prevent the returns. It's almost like if we make it easy for people to shop, they'll be loyal to us, they'll buy more products. We lost if we make a great product that they love, they're going to keep buying it. We sort of shifted gears. Make it easy, make the supply chain smooth, make it flawless, but the returns keep going up.
Yeah.
Gigantic. I heard a good conversation today. Returns on e-commerce are 25% or higher. That means 1 out of every 4 products that you ship or sell is coming back. And the comparison was, would you go bungee jumping if 1 out of every 4 bungee cords failed? No. So at some point the customers are going to react and say, I'm tired of buying things that I have to send back. So we got to go back and focus, Ernst, on the experience. And I hope that companies like Advance can help us figure out how to react to those customers and prevent the return rather than solve the return.
Yeah. Thanks for providing that. And obviously, you're sort of you're looking for a plumber where you could sort of avoid the leakage, right? Sort of how do you sort of engage with your clients? Because obviously you're making money out of each return.
Yep.
How do you help them to prevent them and give them that better customer experience at the end? Maybe from the manufacturing chain, or sort of do you give feedback on the faultiness or the information that you gather from that perspective?
It's precisely that, and like there's an old adage that every return is a failure of some sort. So we work with retailers on getting the information back when a consumer says something's the wrong size. So if the product is the wrong size, we'll try and get that more information from the returns portal to say, is it too big, is it too small? And we work with systems like, if you've ever been on ASOS and you see the fit assistant that sits there that learns from the things that you send back and what you've kept, it tries to then make a recommendation when you're purchasing a product, especially when it goes across different brands. So you might be a size 10 on one brand, but another brand is a slightly smaller fit, so you might be a different size on that. So we cross-match that across those different brands and try and make sure that fit assistant at the point of purchase is working on real data so that you're more likely to get the right size right the first time. We connect the information from inbound supply. So it might be that we see a particularly large fault rate on a product. if we know that we're seeing something that's exceptional, and we know that there's still stock within the warehouse from that particular shipment, and remember, we have the data right the way down to the factory. You may have, the same product that's been made on multiple runs. If we see that that product on that run has got a fault within it, we can put that product on stock within the warehouse and send a QC person round to go and see it,
Sure.
eyeball it, check the stitching, check the fault, and take that off sale to avoid that loop, because we see a lot of that. And there's one other thing as well, and that is we all work on barcodes. Everything's on a label, right? You put the wrong label somewhere in that supply chain on that product, and that product's going to go out. And if the person sees that and they say, okay, that's, and they can see through the poly bag and they say that's a size 14, but they leave the label on, a lot of times that can go back through the return centre, go back into pick, it's the wrong size, gets refulfilled, gets sent out. So we make sure that the return systems and all the returns operatives are relabeling every product as it goes through, that it's a full inspection on the actual product type, and that gets its labels on demand, so the label comes off right there, and then you only get one, so you can't make a mistake on what you're doing, but it stops that return loop that happens in quite a lot of things. If the wrong label is on the bag, you can see that product looping 3 or 4 times just because no one's actually looked inside the bag to see that it's a problem.
Gotcha. So I get an email from you, Ernst. You don't have a medium size anymore, right? Sort of. I'll accept that from you, Will, this time. So. Any other questions here from the audience that you would like to sort of challenge these guys, because they're obviously saying sort of, hey, we can do a lot for you in the supply chain and the management. Any particulars that you would like to sort of address? And this is your chance. All right. So I see the excitement growing, but some people are a little bit shy and sort of they want to see they want to have that conversation at the stand. So you're most welcome in Path E at the junction with Cyclion. So further on so we talked about returns, right? Is that sort of the key buying factor or the key issue nowadays with the online retailers? Is that because cost-wise, right? So why is it beneficial to really address that?
I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying as well in terms of like trying to prevent the returns. I mean, obviously we're in that space. It's part of our business and everything, but it also is a challenge, and as you quite rightly say, returns rates are really high. I know myself, I like to buy, if I'm buying a dress, I might buy 4 and send 3 back. Or I might keep
doing that.
4. But I will always look and see how easy it is to return before I actually shop on a site, and if it's really difficult, I just won't bother.
So it's a buying reason for the end consumer, right?
Yeah.
To the retailer, how that sort of to Tony's comment. What are you doing? What can you further sort of also how that comes across from the clients as a demand to you?
Yeah, but I think one of the other things as well, and one of the real challenges is and as Will was talking before, is that whole cross-border piece as well. If you're a retailer, for example, in the UK, and you are selling products globally, how on earth do you handle that return? That cost is so high. You've got to think about better ways of doing it. So having a global solution where perhaps you can look at understanding what your what your fast sellers are, and having data that you know what products are coming back, and if you've got a new order for that product, actually can you fulfill it again in that country without it having to send it back across border? Can we help to minimise the costs associated with returns so it's not as painful? It's always going to be there, and as e-com is evolving and growing, it's still going to grow, but our job as a supply chain and logistics provider is to try and work out better ways of handling it, so it is that refulfillment option. What's the cost of an item versus the cost to actually return it? Is it better to keep it in the country? Can you sell it as a grade B, or can you have another marketplace out in a different country? Can you keep it there? Reduce your carbon footprint as well, so you're not sending products all around the world. It's different ways of handling things in different locations as well that is really, really key.
And some of the new regulation, right? Sort of that's playing also becoming more sustainable, less waste. You're also doing also in the group you have sort of compliance-y type of things. What are trends from, let's say, that regulatory environment that you see coming your way, and how do you address?
I think that the heavier bit in that is coming out of managing inbound supply from a ethical point of view. So like, is it coming from factories in Leicester that are not quite compliant with minimum wage standards? Is it coming from areas of China that it shouldn't be? Is there rabbit fur or things on that? So there's a lot of pressure from obviously not only from governmental frameworks but also from consumers to make sure that product is ethically compliant and that it's doing all the right things when that comes in. And again, we try and make sure that happens within the supply chain without adding time, because what you don't want to be doing is that product arriving, it gets held, it gets checked, and then you're losing days of sale. So if you can do that and you can build that into any compliance that's already going on, you're not adding any time into those checks so that things can keep moving. And if there are certain things that are not blockers but they just need more investigation, you can do that while the supply chain keeps moving rather than stopping it and waiting for those checks to complete. And then in terms of more compliance on the return side of things is very much around waste management and where that product is going. We've seen that there's a lot of
that's what we people call sort of the producer responsibility type of things, right? Sort of how is that playing into your game?
Well, at the moment, the regulatory side of things is not that strong in the UK, at least from what we're seeing, but the consumer pressure is building. So we're seeing lots of news articles and a lot of reports of clothing that's ending up in African countries, and they're just sifting out the things that they want, and the rest is ending up in these massive piles of landfill. And that's obviously, it's adding to the bad image that a lot of fashion players have got, and they're trying to fix this, and they're trying to find better ways of they thought they'd solved it by sending it over to these countries and saying, hey, let's reuse this product, but they're finding that the actual implementation of it is not that strong.
Gotcha. Thanks for giving us a bird's eye view on what's happening in that space, and a little bit back to your company, to the Advanced Supply Chain Group, as such. Where would you see sort of white spots for your business proposition to further evolve into? Sort of, let's say the regions in the Middle East. Are you all covered, or are you sort of looking for additional sort of partners in this one, or are you fully covered with the economy group? How are you currently looking at that?
I mean, we within the group, we're pretty global, and we've got partners that we work with. We, as in Advanced, and our physical presence, we're UK and Czech Republic at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, we are growing, and we will be expanding within Europe with physical sites ourselves, and also in the US. That's our ambition. But we do work with partners. We're not going to, take over the world ourselves. We're not going to have physical presence ourselves, which is why partnership comes into it. It's really important. We don't profess that we physically will have all of a presence everywhere, but it is all about partnership. And as I mentioned earlier on, we know that with the customers that we have, and some of them who are global and global sort of beasts, I suppose, we have to work with other 3PLs. We have to work in partnership, because we will not do a full end-to-end supply chain for those huge businesses. It's not in our interest. It's not in their interest. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. So partnership is really key.
Great. Yeah. So that I can imagine also with, if you don't want to have an overload on particular one-dimensional type of customers in a way as well.
And you definitely need to leverage the local knowledge in those areas as well, like finding out where the best steakhouses are and all that great stuff. Whenever we go into a new territory, we will definitely lean on the local experience to understand a lot of the idiosyncrasies. There's a lot of things that we would do in the UK because geographically it makes sense for us. You try and replicate that in an area as big as the US, and it's not going to work. It's a whole different way of doing logistics.
Right. So we covered some of the key trends as you see them, right? We covered some, how you would like to expand, move forward, the importance to data, or the importance of data in your activity, and also your current footprint and with the partners. But also many things come together now where we see everybody struggling to attract the right talent. Right, sort of how do you sort of, and typically when you're the business that you're in, you would very much rely on talent. So how do you hire, retain, and how do you operate that as a customer with your customers in order to stay ahead of the game and making sure you get that human asset really displayed well?
We absolutely, you're right. It's a real challenge at the moment. Talent is a real challenge to actually get, but we do train and retain. It's very much a people business. Very proud of that. Will and I have both been with the business for just over 11 years. The retention and the longevity of people with the business is really quite long. We have people who have been with us, well, since it started. I saw our COO just wandering around somewhere, and he's been with the business for about 25, 30 years now.
And still learning, huh?
Yeah.
And he's still learning.
Yeah, and we within the business as well, we have obviously we develop our own tech, and we do that from the operator up. We don't just sit in a room and go, we want to do this process and we're going to build a solution. We've got to understand how it works from the ground up. So actually, a lot of the testers and people who work on the implementations are people who've started working with us physically in the operation. They're the ones who understand the best way of handling a product, or the best way a solution will work. So we train, we retain, and we sort of recruit from within where we can. We sort of nurture.
Yep.
And is that exportable? Because that is obviously how you operate the UK, where you have probably the highest density with the service and the product and the warehouse and the operations. Would you see that also as a model that you can sort of further expand with?
I think one of the most successful things that we've seen as well is that we hire based on capability rather than experience. So a lot of people will look at a CV and just say, "Oh, great, you've done logistics, you've done this." We're more interested. We have like people in roles that they weren't typically doing before. So again, coming from an operational background, they might become project managers. They might be doing things that are a little bit outside of what their experience would tell you that they could do. But it's very much a capability-led, business. It's very much, we've got a challenge to solve. We've got a thing to do. Let's go and do that. And that definitely helps with growth and retention.
Great. Any further questions from the audience? Yeah, there you go. Can we get the mic here?
So first of all, I come from Vinted. It's a secondhand marketplace. And we run everything through partnerships. We don't have any physical operations. But the thing is that what's really unique for me is that what we noticed from our data, and we have more than 100 million inputs every single year, just ship volumes. We noticed that a lot of people, the consumer behavior, like they really, really care about the delivery quality.
Yep.
They care that, okay, it's properly packaged, that it's delivered on time, but not the speed. But then there's this one company. It's a Norwegian company, Heltium. Not entirely sure how they operate, but essentially it's a Norwegian shipping company. They partner with Bolt on it's a strategic partnership on just data sharing and the partnership all throughout when it comes to shipping. And what they mentioned was a really, really interesting takeaway on the consumer behavior. They noticed that so the differentiated women and female, like fashion businesses primarily, and perishable goods companies. And they noticed that women, they actually do care about the visibility. They do care about high quality of shipping. Men also care about that too, but they care about speed more than women do. Do you also see the same trend happening with different demographics?
What we don't see is that trend happening from a bird's eye view, being a one size fits all. So it depends on regions, and different regions are better at planning. If you're in the UK and there's a sunny weekend, you'll see all of the stores sell out of barbecues and meat because nobody plans anything. So in the UK especially, like, it's different depending on what you're about to buy. If you're about to buy bridal or something like that, then it tends to be the speed to delivery is not as important because it's generally planned a decent amount up front. But you'll find a lot of things where people like party wear or things like that they'll leave it to the last minute because they've grown used to the concept that they can just order it today and it comes tomorrow. And there's still a lot of noise when that fails, when that proposition doesn't happen. So I don't think from a bird's eye view looking down there's a one trend that sits across, but there's absolutely learnings that can be made. And you're seeing trends like this with Amazon's day delivery, where you can just say, well, actually just keep buying things and it's going to come once or twice a week because we'll consolidate those boxes together. There's a lot of success and there's a lot of people, and rightly so, just saying doesn't matter, whenever it can come here. But I think the truth is that I think everybody needs that proposition and they need that offering and they need to be able to do it because it sometimes depends on the use case and what that person is buying it for. And if you're not available and you're not able to do that next day, you've lost that sale because somebody else is going to pick that up because they need it tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for the question, and for those who are unfamiliar with the Vinted proposition, you can sell obviously your sort of purchases or your missed purchases, and you can sell it on to somebody else, and it's a huge success, fastly growing. And the other part is it's rolling up other sort of let's say semi-successful operators in that space. So you see sort of an emerging market dominance with the right investors as well. Any further questions from the audience at this point? To Will and Carolyn. So that you must have been super clear about it. Thanks for sharing all your insights. I thought it was amazing because it gave me as well a clear view on where you're heading at. As a sort of, let's say, mid-sized supply chain operation, you need to have that flexibility, but also embed that in the culture and the strategy of your company and moving forward. And even within a bigger conglomerate, you're still able to stand out in your own sort of uniqueness in that space. And the other part is sort of, if you see the major trends, we covered a couple of them, and particularly I would say on the returns, keep in mind that also those data and the test that it provides to your product is super important. So henceforward, if you pick a supply chain operator, pick someone who has that data and who's willing and able to share that with you without thinking sort of, hey, I need to immediately additionally charge. I'm not sure whether you do that or not, but think about it, sort of how that would all sort of come together. That concludes my observations on how you are going. And as you mentioned, apologies again for not being able to put up the presentation, but we wanted to test obviously the agility and and the flexibility of this team. And I think you passed the test big time. So an A+ for the two people here, Caroline and Will. Give them a big hand.
Thank you.